Are we on?
Yeah. Looks good.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So, hi everybody. Thanks, Kevin and Anna, for the presentation that you just gave. We're going to talk about the presentation that we've just done. As Anke mentioned, we are at the beginning stage since we're very happy to find out that we got granted research. So we wanted to tell you about our project, our research project, and also give you an insight in how it came about and how it developed to the stage, and maybe also a few notes on how it might develop forward. The project is named Data Resonance. It is an artistic research project exploring spatial dynamics in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and utilizing data sonification as a tool for collective empowerment in times of crisis. What this exactly means, I hope it will be clear towards the end of her presentation. As Anke mentioned, a very important part of the KEAM application is the network forming. So we focused a lot on how to connect to different organizations and partners. So, of course, this forms part of the Research Center Art and Society of the Hans Hogeschool. And we're working in collaboration with four main institutions. One, as Anke was just saying, is the artistic research community, and we're very happy that to have this collaboration. The other one is the Research Gallery MP3 in Groningen. The other is the Institute STIME, which is an institute for advanced sound. And the other is Drone GAE, which is a drone company in Groningen as well. We've also tried to reach out to different, since it's a practice-based research, so we're going to be doing a lot of lab work and experimentation. We've also reached out to different companies to ask for the support in working with different softwares and equipments, among them Ableton, RME. So a bit about us, the artistic researchers, Hannes Arvid Andersson, and myself, Marcelo Agustin Martinez. Marcelo and Agustin, sometimes it might be a bit confusing, but it's the same person, it's me. I'm an Argentinian artist. I moved to the Netherlands 10 years ago to the city of Utrecht to study, where coincidentally Anna Dragman was finishing his studies at the same university. I think we happened to share one semester, and I give a shout out to him because actually he helped us in this research by translating the text and giving us a lot of valuable input while we were preparing the proposal. So thanks again. After being in Utrecht and short stop through Germany, I came to Groningen, where I studied at the FMI, the program Art Design Technology, where Hannes was doing his, he was finishing his studies there. And we met through there, and we got along and understood that we had like very similar interests in our art practices. So we started collaborating together. We do so under the moniker sometimes Arvustin Caramdersson. We have a website that we can share with you if you're more interested in looking into it. And I give the floor now to Hannes, who I believe will introduce himself and talk a bit more about our work.
Yes, so I'm Hannes. For those who don't know me, I'm from Sweden originally, and I'm an artist, an investigator, and media practitioner. And I kind of got into the whole field of doing the arts as a VJ in Barcelona, and then after that I went to film school and I got involved with the collective and I started to make more interactive installations and things like this. And maybe we can get the next slide. And when I met Augustine, I think it was 2017, maybe 18.
18 or no, and 17, yes.
Okay, but we very quickly realized that we had a lot of overlap in both how we work and how we think around technology and what kind of focal points we use. So I think our main meeting point is maybe in this, like the technology semantics. So like what does technology do, and how can you think around it, and how does it change the situation both on like a personal and societal scale, and what is the relationship to that, but also how can you use that as a tool to address that like in a critical way, and also how does media perform. Next slide. So, and then we tackled this from various different angles. Our first, when we first started to work together, it was in the form of an audiovisual performance group called Helion. And then we do various kinds of activities tackling this from different angles. These slides are from when we went to Sweden, and we did a workshop there with a museum that is a cultural heritage site about how can you use new media in order to address cultural heritage, and we did a workshop there on how they could use projection mapping on these cave paintings that they were there. Slide. Then this from our last bigger project, I guess you could say. It was commissioned by the Media Art Friesland. Maybe we can jump to the next slide again. It was commissioned by the Media Art Friesland. We got asked to do a site-specific work in this location called the Blockhouse Port. I'm not going to talk so much about it, but more about a little bit about the process to show how we work. So we worked with the archive of Leeuwarden, and we collected all the materials that we could find about this specific location, and also collecting 3D photogeometry data, and so and all the historical materials related to this space. And this got translated through various processes of artificial intelligence into this site-specific media work, which was projected on the location it was about. And we also did a panel there about artificial intelligence together with this political scientist called Carsten Schultz, who I met through Katie, actually, because they worked together in a project that she also did in Leeuwarden. Slide. And so, so back to the project. Augustin, do you want to start this?
Yes. So I think it was around the 29th of April that Anke contacted us with the idea of proposing research project for the Kennis and Innovation Mapping Team 2020 funding scheme. At the time, we, like she mentioned, there's different points of the mission that are mentioned that one can focus on where to do the research. The one we focused on, 4.7, was data and security. At the time, if you recall, it was the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a lot of conversations going around regarding the usage of an app in order to track people, or in which way you could know who has been infected, and in a way have a system of control and security and safety for people regarding the sickness. So that kind of sparked our initial conversations into this topic. So we thought that was very well all over the news, and we had already have a big interest in working with data and with technology. So we focus a lot our conversations into the idea of governance through data. The many topics that sprang from that were the issues of privacy. And we focused a lot also on the theories of Lanier and Wales, who have written a blueprint for a movement they called data dignity. It's sort of blueprint idea for a society where people have a better understanding of the value of their personal data. In this case, it's very much related to the issues of privacy and data in regards to the big tech companies, as Google and Facebook. And he proposes a situation where the general public has a better awareness and literacy surrounding their data and therefore is more empowered. And we thought that was very important and connected very much to the idea of safety, which, as Hannes pointed out very importantly, we're out there realizing that in the corona pandemic is very much a feeling situation. Over to you, Hannes.
Yeah, and I picked this image for this slide because I think it quite well illustrates this concept that like when you, for example, see like a policeman at Schiphol with a machine gun. I mean, he's in theory there to secure the situation, right? To generate safety, but it doesn't necessarily make you feel more safe because from you don't know who put him there and what's his agenda and what's his task, and from the personal perspective, it's just a guy with a machine gun, so which doesn't generate like a feeling of safety. And I think the same thing happens in a lot of these governance attempts in assuring safety, that you implement technologies that maybe invade your privacy, that you don't know how they work, you don't know how they act, you don't know who has access to the things that it generates, and you don't know how that is being used. And it locks you out as an individual or as a community from this whole process of dialogue around what is a safe situation, and it doesn't necessarily make you feel safer. And if you don't feel safer, the question becomes like, are you actually safer? Next slide. So, which you can apply to this situation, right? We were like a year ago. This now seems kind of bizarre, the left side of this picture. Like it's been more than a year since you could get together with people in ways like this, for example. And then the question would be like, who's safer? On which side are they safer? And safer from what? Because in one way, something that I feel like is forgotten in this whole debate around safety in Corona is like the personal well-being of people. So because you take away all the recreational activities, you isolate people from each other, and it generates other kind of safety issues, I feel like, in effect to trying to battle the pandemic. Slide. And then it also has these problems with like data governance in general, that you generate a bit of this. It's easy to generate a bit of a dystopian scenario where nobody really knows what's going on. It's just this big process that is governed by some sort of technologies that nobody really has insight in how they work. And I think this is the general problem with developing technology that happens, is that you have, for example, like a governmental agency that commissions a technology from a private developing environment, and that doesn't, they get tasked to do a technology that does a specific thing, and the people who develop this technology often get very little information about like the more soft qualities that it should inhabit. So you just look at like, how well does this technology do what we told it to do, and then if it does that, then it's a success, and you implement it. And then but you don't really consider what else it might do. And developers in general are quite low on literacy around social issues, I think. And I think this is a problem. And I also think politicians, for example, are generally on very low literacy on the technological development and its application. So I think this creates a dangerous blind spot in society. So I think like a good, I mean, maybe not solution, but a good place to start in this would be to try to maintain a critical perspective from the beginning of the development of a technology, and to keep the technology, like having the ownership over the technology not be so dislocated from the people it applies to. Yeah, we can do the next slide. So we started to talk about this, like what would be a safe technology? What is a safe technology, and how can that work, and how should it be developed, and what should it consider? And then we came to this, that like to say that a technology is safe, it should be productive. It should be friendly to the people who use it. It should be empowering them somehow. It should not be repressing. And in order to do that, it should be transparent in what it does, and it should also be somehow optional in terms of how you use it, and it should be shared so there can be a dialogue around it, so it doesn't become this black box that just acts. Slide. So then we started to talk about this concept of like friendly surveillance technology, because there is, I mean, technology is not neutral, but it's also not. I mean, it's not neutral in the sense that it has agency and it has a way of enforcing its agency, but it doesn't have intentionality, right? So, and there's nothing wrong per se in like using data to organize situations. It's also what Allende tried to do from the beginning in Argentina with the whole cybernetic movement and so, and it has a lot of potential. So we started to talk about this. Can we like make a friendly surveillance technology that might be useful in these times of social isolation and global pandemics? Slide. So and then Augustin will talk a bit more about, I think, the specific surveillance technologies and so that involved, but I am quite interested in general in sound and how sound can be used. And as a organizational technology, I think sound seems quite interesting. Also because it's very overlooked, I think, maybe because it's messy. Like it's suggestive. It's very hard to control something directly with sound, because sound is like it's a mechanical wave. That in its construction is quite simple, but that translates to a very, very complex experience in the person who hears it. So, and it has the potential to carry a lot of emotionality. And I think that this balance of being a very rich container for communication and emotionality while having very little possibility for direct control makes it an interesting technology to look at in terms of societal organization in general. Slide. And then, I pass to you here.
Okay, good. So yes, I was very interesting we were talking about surveillance, and one of the technologies of surveillance that has become very popular or widespread in its use in the past few years are drones. I was very interested in drones for a while in regards of how one can subvert the roles of these technologies, because we and I on our work, we focus a lot of how technologies act as an interface and how these interfaces mediate and influence the experience that one has of oneself in regards to one's environment. So in a way, this is when our ideas started to come into a circle that thought, okay, so there's this gap in the culture industry. There's this issue with surveillance technologies that had been, proposed also at the start of the pandemic and actually applied in certain countries in the world, like in China, for example, to actually do a control of the spatial situation and of people. And we thought, okay, in a way, we had this idea of dancing with drones, a bit like dancing with wolves, but instead with drones. And how this combination would come about, we thought it would be very interesting to bring these things together in a setting that's actually the space that we were thinking had this very strong impact because of the pandemic, which is the cultural and recreational industries, both grow in the cultural sector. So we all know how this has influenced us, and as Hennes said, it really has this very strong and direct effect on our emotional states. So and our feelings of safety. So the idea was to say, okay, how can we then start applying these things into a research setting? And we thought there's this very important issue of space, and there's this very important issue of personal data and privacy and how they come together in some sort of governance, where we find it's very important to empower people and to give them the tools and a certain literacy towards how they participate in this in a communal experience.
Can I just a quick comment there?
Yeah, of course, please.
So our approach is basically to look at if we can create a situation where people are enabled to self-organize by use of surveillance technologies in a closed feedback loop, so that you don't to go away from the paradigm of surveilling, analyzing, and making legislation and implementing that via control, to rather create situations where people do not need to be surveilled because they are able to experience the surveillance data that is gathered on them, and that it doesn't leave that circle. It only translates to something that it translates to an awareness. It doesn't become stored. It doesn't go out of that. And it puts the responsibility of the people in the situation. Yeah, back to you.
So we thought then, following these lines, that we needed to apply our research in different steps. We would be focusing on data, and our first step would be this idea of data gathering. Actually, how does this translation start? How does this process start to enable a translation? That is to say, how do you actually take the data from the situation and the people? And we focus on this part of we will focus on this part of the research into the topics we mentioned at the beginning. So these ideas of what are the privacy and ethical concerns of how this could be done. And that's what we're very interested in research in this first step. And the second step is the translation of this data to eventually come to the situational application. That is to say, to take that data and create an environment where you have the technology, in this case, the sound, the drones, and the visual area, and translate that data to the people so they can have like an embodied experience of this process. We believe that this sort of embodied experiences of technologies is what really gives the opportunity to understand the interface better. And of course, then it broadens up into the situational application of how the situation will enable this dynamic commonality between the participants. We've structured then in what we like to call research labs. We have 3 main research labs that we plan to carry out this research on throughout the year. The first one is the data lab that I just mentioned, the processes we will undertake there. The second is the translation lab, and the application lab is the moment we can try these systems out. But the research doesn't just stop there. We want to then try a sort of demo lab of presentation where we would like to, with our partners, give them opportunity to see how it in action, actually, this results of what we've investigated in these 3 labs comes about in practice. Further on, then we will commence a process of reflection and writing, where we will get onto the more, academic kind of discourse regarding the findings that we had during our more practice-based research that we've been doing for the first part of the project.
And just to cut in shortly, like when we say lab, we mean an intense working period where we're looking at a specific thing in a practical setting.
Exactly. So, we had mentioned our partners before, and the different points that the key funding schemes find so important of networking and also of innovation. That's why we're also very interested in working with partners regarding the more, how can I say, creative, innovative industries, to say it in a way, which would be the drones, which would be STEIN, which is at the forefront of experimental electronics and translation of data systems, and then with the research gallery, which proposes an artistic research system of presentation within the gallery and arts system. So we thought it was very interesting to have this very different types of collaborations. And of course, here we have a small graphic of how these organizations come together. And of course, the artistic research community has a very important step in all of this, because we believe very much in the exchange of ideas and knowledge. And we believe that from this is the organization that allows the enrichment of this research process. Since it's very explorative, I think that it enables that in a very positive way. One of the that we also Anke also mentioned at the beginning points of the team is also how this artistic research can generate further value. What's the value of the research that comes across? We thought that it had 4 main points of interest. One was for the general public, for the points that we mentioned regarding their possibility of sharing space in a safe manner, and to generate in them hopefully a better understanding of data and how to deal with data in the digital times. Of course, the event industry, in that it would enable them to maybe present a technology-aided solution to the problems they're facing through the pandemic. The tech industry in a certain way, because we think that, well, in 2 main ways. One, in that like the investigation we'll be doing will be tech-related, and in a certain way advances the possibilities that the field enables. And on the other hand, in that it brings across this very important blind spot that Hannes mentioned, that is the social aspects that many times the big industry doesn't have a grip on, or interesting, or more humanitarian understanding. And finally, of course, artistic research, since it's, I feel it's a very interesting and approach that we're having, of having this very much focused practice action-based research that we hope that will, contribute to further research in these topics, and also in a way showcase the possibilities that artistic research has for these teams. So that's our idea right now, and I take it to Hannes to talk a bit about how we see this moving forward.
Yeah, something that maybe also good to mention in this is that it's an open-ended research. So we're not angulated in the sense that we are working towards a very specific point to have something that is universally applicable at the end of this process, but rather to open up the question how these things can be done. Like, what is the value of treating data in such ways in practical situation? What is the value of potential value of using sound and other sensible technologies in such manners, and what kind of appliances might this have, or like further points of investigation. So, and we also thought in this process, I mean, because we're interested in dialogue and we want to make dialogical technology. It would also be very interesting to bridge, for example, with the Arab Master. If people from the Arab Master are interested in this, that would be interesting to hear after what points of interest there might be in forms maybe of think tanks about these topics or possible other applications. And so we also thought to involve the MATEC program in the form maybe of workshops, which might be angled towards the application and implementation of this, but also in dealing with critical technological practice in general. And so basically we just, like Anke said, we just found out that we got this funding, and we are now in the pre-production state of this. I think we are planning our first labs in beginning of March, and until then we are working with organization and planning, and with the partners also. And maybe.
So yes, if anybody has any questions, please, because we've just been talking to a computer with slides, just looking at slides, and it's super weird. So we appreciate.
Start by saying that it's really a very good overview. I'm really impressed by how you brought this whole research topic, but I have to say I'm in. So I've heard of it before, but I'm still very impressed by the way you brought it today. but let's quickly go into the questions. Just pop in, because at the moment I don't see who did raise their hands, but there are many hands. Wait.
I think Anna and Adri I see, and yeah, maybe Anna.
Yes, I wanted to ask about drones. Do I understand correctly that that is one of the appliances that you want to use?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, but then I have a question. Well, we also use a drone for several things, and one is I remember we had a kind of a closed event with people knowing that there's a drone used. And well, it was flying around and filming, and what you see in a lot of the images are really annoyed people, like, oh, what is happening? Why is this machine looking at me? And when I think about the forest, then I also feel that it's often, it's my feeling often that it's very intrusive. Can you say something about it? I'm sure you've thought a lot about it.
Yes, for sure. I mean, in regards to its intrusiveness and how people relate to it, for sure, I think it's like not only intrusive, I think it's a bit of what the words would be, like a bit of this dystopic technology in a certain way, right? It really gives a very Black Mirror kind of feeling, I feel, in many ways. At a certain time, there have been numerous other uses of the technology that are super positive. So I think like for instance, for building or humanitarian work. So I think like it's very much interesting for us in the sense of what we were talking about, this interface with technologies. And certainly there's, I think, a lot to explore regarding that.
And I think like we won't only be using drones as a means of collecting data. That it's one of the things we look at exactly for that reason, because it's kind of the intrusive surveillance technology, the most disembodied kind of entity. It's like it's a flying robot that surveils you, that doesn't, you don't know who drives it, you don't know what it's doing. And I think we picked that specific technology because of that. So what happens then? How can you give ownership of the drone situation to the people in the situation? And how does that translate? And does that change our relationship to the technology in itself? Like, if you would use drones, can you use drones for empowering interaction, for example? And how does that affect our feeling towards drones? Or can't you? Maybe you can't. Maybe the drone is too drony, but that is also something that we want to explore.
Okay, can we lower your hand again, Anna? No, Adri. Okay, Adri, come in.
Yes, I think maybe it's partly answered, but I was wondering, the data, is it the idea that you will create systems that collect data, or is it also the idea that you use systems that collect data?
It's both. So, and the idea is to try to not collect data, but try to translate the data directly.
Yeah.
So but then we will definitely look at systems that do this for us. It's also why we asked the Drone Hub, because they have also we hope the systems for using, for example, photogeometry and this kind of stuff. Yeah. So we definitely engage with ready-made technologies. I mean, depending on what we find most useful, we might also develop our own remixes of such technologies.
Yeah, because what I was thinking is that when you talk about collecting data for surveillance, for example, or let's say when you start collecting, before you start collecting data, there is an intention, and the intention, it can be, I don't know, science. It can be the intention to collect data to monetize it, what of course happens a lot. But it can also be collecting data for surveillance, and I can imagine there are more intentions to it. So the intention, what is the intention to collect data, And because that very much decides also, I think, what kind of systems you are going to use. If, for example, if you're going to use existing systems, you are maybe using systems with an intention beforehand. So yeah, I was wondering, how is this an artistic intention, or is it like playing with data that has different intentions, for example?
So yeah, I mean, I very much agree with what you're saying, and we're always, I think, very aware of the fact that, especially, I think designers are very aware of this, that any tool you're using is definitely mediating and influencing how you're doing, because it's like you say, the intention of it was designed, the intention of it was programmed, its limitation, like the tool is very important in that sense. So actually, we've worked a lot, and usually what we try to do is adapt those tools to the work that we are going to do. Like that's what we've done in previous projects. Regarding the data, I think like ideally we would hope to have a real-time system where actually then you don't need to store the data, but you can just like translate it into this feedback loop that we want to create, because the intention of the data is in a way to make it visible and make it apparent so that people can, you know, see it, understand it, visualize it, and hopefully embody it in a way. So that's our main intention with it. At the same time, we also want to analyze these points that come about while trying to do these things.
And also all these questions are precisely the questions of the first lab session, right? Like how can we deal with data in this kind of situations in an ethical way, and what technology should we use, and how can we work with them? So that's basically what that first chunk of intense practical work is focused on. So I think we will have more answers to these questions after that.
Wait, Hannes, it's 12 o'clock now. So whoever has to go at 12 o'clock, please leave them now. But I guess that we like to continue for at least 10 more minutes. Is that correct? Is that okay for the rest? Can we do that? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something in between, okay?
I might need to pop out, but I might need to pop out. I'm expecting a delivery, but we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, okay. But Anne, I think you were...
Anna, thank you so much for the work you did in the application and everything. That was super.
But Anne raised his hand. He was the first one to raise his hand. So maybe you can just take the floor and ask your question.
I also already talked a lot. I think it's looking really good. I'm really interested and excited what's going to come out. I'm happy to help you. Was happy to help you. One thing I was just thinking. So obviously this is very experimental. So you're going to figure out a lot of things as you go along. But I was just to almost reflect your own concern back at you. What if you are successful in creating some kind of product that is usable for these kind of events, and maybe your intention is not to do surveillance, but somebody else can use that template to do that. So to think ahead, like what if I am successful, and maybe you do need to tie some kind of data protection anyway to it, even though you want to do it in real time yourself. That was it.
No, certainly. I think it's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we would feel like Einstein after the atomic bomb. I think it was.
Whoa.
Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of saying, yeah, it's a very interesting point. I mean, it speaks a lot about Adri's point of how the tools of technology shape the character of it a lot.
Okay, thanks. Let's continue. Henry, you raised your hand as well. Please come in.
Yeah, just want to say congratulations. It sounds like an interesting project, and just to reiterate Anna's point, or it's a kind of an offshoot of Anna's point, that the data collection or what you do with it. If you use hardware, there's a lot of. Sorry, just before I get into it, I just want to ask, what are the elements of surveillance that is is it the security? So with the surveillance, is it because there's lots of software tech that deals with this issue, and if you're talking about surveillance in the 21st century, a lot of it is you follow the money train, and in the last year there's been a big explosion in decentralized information streams in DeFi, and there's a lot of programs dealing with the idea of how to get surveillance of people in an off-grid scenario which is run by the people. So it ties into the research you do. There might be an idea to look into these decentralized DeFi programs that enable you to source, to allow people to access the information you're gonna create and maybe show it. But I was just curious if you, sorry, it's a bit of a ramble, but I was curious. First question was the surveillance, is it for safety? And then the second one, did you know about the DeFi, these protocols that are currently exploding?
I mean, I know that there are many open source and alternative ways of looking at this. I am not that well versed in the specifics of them, but this is also a point of interest in this research.
There's a couple of there's a program called BAT, which is it's a cryptocurrency, but the point of the currency is to try and give control of information to the viewer, so you can make money out of it. So anything you do can be put into it, can be tokenized and made into a currency which you can benefit from directly. And all of that is encrypted at every level, so they don't know who you are, but you can get the resources and the money from it. So in terms of surveillance on a digital place, there's lots of software tech that's being developed, which might feed into your project quite nicely in a hardware tech.
No, certainly. But we will. But I mean, we are looking at this question in a quite specific scenario. So we're looking at like how do you implement it in a space, in a shared space with people, and that's the bounding box, I guess you would say.
Okay.
Yeah, like,
Okay. Yes, we're a bit running out of time. Marcello, yes.
okay. Yes, very, very quickly to Henry's question. We thought like blockchain is one of the technologies that is underlying this data dignity project. I think like just a small bracket is that the idea of the research is like it springs a lot of interesting sub research and sub questions, but also just to note that what we're really interested in is also the end user in a way and their experience and their relation to these things. And of course, we will pay a lot of attention to these points, but we also don't want to like completely focus on research not where it actually goes towards. If that makes sense how I said it.
Okay, thank you, Henry. It certainly shows the wisdom of the crowd and how important it is to do this kind of presentations. Also, some links are already popping up in the discussion room. I don't know how you call it. Well. But let us continue to Julia, because she also raised her hand. Julia, come in.
Yeah, I know I actually did raise my hand. Well, first, thank you for your presentation. It was really interesting. And I can relate a little bit because I'm also working on collecting stories. And I was also thinking about working with data and computer gestuurde, linguistics to work together with them. And I also like your remark on sound, that has emotion in that reference. And what I wanted to ask was, did you think of what kind of data you want to collect? I just understood that it's not about the data themselves, but more about the awareness and the sensory experience of the data. But
I think the starting point is to focus on spatial dynamics. But then, like, depending on what we find there, we might engage with other forms of data as well. And so
I think there is a project that someone collected also data from people walking around at a festival. I don't know if you know that project, and I didn't remember the name. And I'm pretty sure that there's someone at MedTech that really likes this project as well, because her graduation project, I don't know if you see it, was about surveillance. She actually added a lot of people on Facebook, and then she made like stories about them on her own Facebook page. And she also filmed people at events and also showed that during the event, and also looked up information on Facebook and Instagram accounts to make people aware of the online social space. So maybe that's just a...
Who from the MedTech?
I think her name is Diana Sara. Diana. Well, I can look it up and email it to you later, maybe.
Yeah, but we should surely get in touch with the MedTech department and bring this presentation to them as well. Well, you did all this work for this good presentation. I think it's a good environment to do it again. And to collect feedback and interesting insights from the people there as well. Thank you, Julia.
Yeah, certainly. And yes, Julia, nice that you're interested in the project. We should definitely keep in touch. And like I said, we will be happy to work with the IRAP or the people from the IRAP who are interested in it. And so, yeah, let's talk for sure.
Okay, well, it's 12:09. We still have 2 raised hands, and I really want to give them the floor, both of them. Katie, please come in with your question.
Hi. Yeah, firstly, I want to say I'm really impressed by the whole project. I can relate to this idea of being kind of data illiterate. That's me. So all of the technological questions that have been asked so far, or even these surveillance-related questions, yeah, they wouldn't be my initial concerns. I guess that's what you guys are going to research when you do this. But I'm really impressed by this. I can really see from your framework kind of your intentions around the ethics. And yeah, from my perspective, I'm very interested, not necessarily in what you will define as these ethics and values, but how you will unfold what is safety, what is this social value, and yeah, which ethics are you kind of interacting with. So I'm very, very curious about how that unfolds, because I can really see in your framework that you've paid a lot of attention to it being really important. And I'm curious, Augustine, you mentioned kind of subset research happening, and yeah, I'm really interested in that element of the project and would love to get involved also from the IRAP perspective in that element. So yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on how you will develop that.
I mean, so we're just starting now. Like we put a lot of thought into this. We thought about this a lot, but now it's when it actually starts. So this is also when our methodologies and frameworks get put to test, right? And but yes, nice that you're interested in it for sure. Like we said, it would be valuable both for us and for everyone, I think, involved to maintain a dialogue around it, and to also to address these things. If you say that it's a more ethical solution, is it a more ethical solution, and what are the problems with it? And I think that's it's very important to maintain that throughout, and to do that, it's very important to have also external inputs, because you can get a bit blind about your own process, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to avoid also.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and certainly the ARC and the IRAP together are a very critical mass for you and to respond on your research. The last intervention can come from Simona. Simona, please come in.
We don't hear you.
Hi, now I think you can. Sorry. I think it hasn't been said enough. I think you did a really impressive job. I'm really impressed. I really enjoyed reading your proposal. I have tons of things that I would like to say, but I'm going to keep it really brief right now, and then I'm going to send you an email with all kinds of notes and questions. And the question I'm asking is a bit similar to what Katie asked. And my question is actually, you mentioned that you're going to use these labs formats where you're going to work intensively. And I wanted to ask if it's only closed for the 2 of you, or if others can join these labs.
You are very welcome to join. People are welcome to join.
I want to use this opportunity to invite myself to one of your our resources can actually really provide us interesting chapters. And I think the labs that you're proposing are really interesting formats to do this. And the rest will follow in an email.
Super. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Everybody's more than welcome, and yes, I think like also more towards the end of the labs, we'll actually have the need for people to test the system. So we are thinking of working in small groups of people that help us with experimentation of the systems. Corona-proof permitting.
To do things like think tanks, and so in between these labs, because then we also have something more of a body, right? That we can bring to it, that we can scrutinize also.
Good. Well, I may conclude by saying that this was again a really fruitful meeting. Really great how we do this and how we can also do this on within teams and not by seeing each other physically. So I would say it's really great. Thanks for now. Next week, I really hope we will meet again at the public event, the ARC Talk. That's how you call it, Hannes?
Not next week. It's the 27th, right?
Huh?
It's not next week. It's in 2 weeks.
Oh, is it in 2 weeks? Okay, sorry. I'm not good at data. In 2 weeks, okay. So what will be next week?
Next week we will be joined by Pauline from the NNF.
Okay.
Utrecht,
okay, so that gives us plenty of time to do a bit of preparation together. Okay, well, the Arabs are also, people are also invited for the public talk in 2 weeks, and I don't think we need tens and hundreds of people to attend, but it is important that people know about this public event. So if you are on Facebook, please share. If you have friends, colleagues for whom this meeting might be interesting, I think we kind of stay a bit within the realm of digital culture for now, but on a very critical way, societal critical way. So please ask people to join us. And for now, I think in 3/4 of an hour. Okay, yeah, I give you the floor. There will be again a meeting with the Arab students together with Anne, and that will be more on the topic of action research. So if some of you think, well, that's really interesting, I'd like to join, I think you're welcome. I say that on behalf of the Arab students, but I guess you're welcome to. It's more about, that meeting will be about what is it? Action research. And how can you approach your own project from the perspective of action research? Or how can you learn from action research how to better connect with the people you're working with? Something like that. Oh, hello. So now we should really stop. I can't focus anymore.
Really quickly about the...
Just one more small thing for my part. I don't know, is there already a Teams meeting at 1 o'clock? I asked the Arab students because I'm not good at that. Do we already have a Teams meeting? Can somebody make a Teams meeting at 1 o'clock from the Arab students? Who can do that? Eva?
I can do that.
I thought, thank you. Okay, Hannes, you raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quickly about the public event in 2 weeks that it will be on Zoom, and it will using the Zoom webinar. So it will start like a panel, so not like this that everyone is visible, but then it will open up for more dialogue, and then it would be nice if people join that, so so that people don't just stay like behind. But anyone who is interested in joining that dialogue should do so, and then I got this ridiculously expensive Zoom account now, so you can bring people in and out. So don't be shy to go into the dialogue, basically.
Okay. We should finance that account of you, Hannes. Let's talk about that later. Should not be you the one who's paying it. Okay, so it's 70 minutes past 12. Yes? Let's call it a date or something like that. Let's just...
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
And the Arab students we will meet in at 1 o'clock, and Anna as well, and who wants to join us as well. Bye, everybody. It was great.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Have a nice day.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye, all. Thank you.